They say your first encounter with them never makes sense. It's a dream or a trick of the light. Shadow thrown by a coat rack, maybe. Just a flicker in the corner of your vision when you're half asleep. That's what I told myself anyway. Until I saw him again, years later. Realized I'd been wrong the whole time. I was 8 years old the first time I saw the Hat Man. I didn't know that's what people call them then. I just knew there was a man standing in the doorway of my room one night, tall and motionless, wearing what looked like a long coat and a wide-brimmed hat. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just watched. I tried to scream, but I couldn't. My chest felt crushed like something heavy was sitting on it. My limbs were locked in place. Couldn't even close my eyes. All I could do was stare at him while he stared at me. When I finally broke free, snapping upright. It's like he'd never been there. But I remember the cold. Kind that sinks into your bones and doesn't go away. My parents told me it was just a bad dream. Sleep paralysis, they said, common in kids. My dad even joked that maybe I shouldn't watch so many Goosebumps episodes before bed. I tried to believe them. I really did. But I also started sleeping with the lights on. Over time, I forgot about it. Or maybe I buried it. Life went on. I grew up, moved out, got a job, tried to be a normal person with normal worries. That night became one of those strange, blurry childhood memories you don't look at too closely. Until last month. It started with the dreams. Not nightmares, at first. Just weird, half-lucid dreams of someone watching me. From corners, mirrors, hallways. Always just out of focus. Always wearing a hat. Then came the waking moments. I'd be sitting at my desk and feel like someone was behind me. Walking home and swear I saw someone duck behind a tree. Shadows that linger too long. Nightmares that bled into the morning. And then, just like when I was 8, I woke up one night unable to move. I was lying on my back, staring at the ceiling. My chest was heavy, my arms numb. Could feel the air pressing in, thick and stale. Tried to turn my head, and that's when I saw him. In the corner of my room, hat, coat, featureless face. Exactly the same. He stepped closer this time. Not fast, more intentional. One step, then another. Till he's standing right at the edge of my bed. Feel the air ripple around him. The cold soaked into my skin. He leaned down, impossibly slow. Couldn't breathe. I couldn't scream.
You remember me now.
The light snapped on. My roommate had opened the door, just that she heard a noise. I could move again. Gasping like I'd been underwater. And he was gone. I tried to brush it off. The sleep paralysis again, right? Stress, overwork, childhood nightmare resurfacing. Really anything to make it easier. But the next day, my roommate told me something that made my blood run cold. She said she saw someone in a hat standing outside my window the night before. Thought it was just a trick of the streetlight. We live on the 3rd floor. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I went down the rabbit hole. Forums, Reddit threads, videos from people who'd seen the exact same thing. Some described him standing at the foot of their beds. Others said he followed them for years. A few said he never left. Nobody seems to agree on what he really is. A shadow person, a spirit, a demon, an interdimensional traveler, even. A hallucination brought on by trauma or sleep deprivation. But they all describe the same thing. The coat, the head, the silence, and the fear. I almost thought it might just be in my head, but I'm one of those people whose mind just goes a little weird sometimes. Until I found a post from someone who grew up 2 streets away from me. A different house, different family. But they described the same experience I had when I was a kid. Down to the cold, the crushing weight, and the whisper. Last night, I stayed up with every light in the apartment on. My roommate was out of town, and I was alone. Tried to keep myself awake, scrolling through videos, drinking coffee, pretending I wasn't terrified. At 3:17 a.m., the power went out. I heard footsteps, slow and deliberate, in the hallway. My bedroom door creaked open, and he was there. Closer than before. Almost close enough to touch. I couldn't move, couldn't blink, couldn't breathe. He didn't speak this time. He just tilted his head, like he was studying me. And then he smiled. Not sure how I could tell, so I could feel it in my mind. The amusement that made my stomach turn. Then he faded, like smoke curling into the dark. The lights came back on. My phone buzzed, full charge again, though I could swear I watched the battery drain moments earlier. I don't know how much longer I can take this. I don't think he's done with me. And I don't think I'm imagining him. If you've seen him too, I'm sorry. Because once he finds you, he doesn't let go. And worst of all, I think he's getting closer.
When I was 10, I woke up in the middle of the night and saw him standing in the doorway of my bedroom. He just stared at me for a few minutes before turning and walking downstairs. To this day, I still feel like he's nearby.
Across countless accounts and message boards, one figure appears again and again. A tall, shadowy man wearing a wide-brimmed hat. He doesn't speak, he doesn't run, he simply watches, often appearing in moments of sleep paralysis, stress, or isolation. The Hat Man has become one of the most chilling and enigmatic entities of modern paranormal folklore. But what makes him different from other shadow people? Why does he appear to so many people around the world, often with eerily similar details? And is he just a figment of the mind, or something much darker? Reports of shadowy figures date back centuries. The Hat Man stands out due to one distinct feature: his attire. Described as wearing a trench coat, overcoat, or a cloak, and a fedora, flat-brimmed hat, or even a top hat. He exudes a presence that feels more deliberate, more intelligent than a mere specter. While shadow people appear as fleeting silhouettes or residual energies, the Hat Man is often described with unsettling clarity. He has no face, but witnesses say he radiates intention, awareness. Some feel he's studying them. Others claim he brings a sense of pure, suffocating dread. Some cultures tie similar figures to omens of death or malevolent spirits. In Islamic lore, the jinn are unseen beings capable of influencing dreams and perceptions. Appalachian folklore speaks of watchers, silent figures in the woods that appear before tragedies. In Dutch superstition, tales circulate of a man in the hat lingers at the edge of candlelight. There are also parallels in Slavic mythology with the figure of the Nocnica, a night spirit or hag who torments sleepers, especially children. Said to press down on their chests, steal breath, or drain energy, Nocnica embodies many traits that mirror the Hat Man's presence. Nocturnal, silent, and tied to suffocating fear, she's often described as a shadow-like figure that lingers in the corners of rooms or slips through cracks and doors. In Germanic and Scandinavian folklore, there is also the Mara, a night spirit believed to sit on the chests of sleepers, inducing terrifying dreams, suffocation, and paralysis. The word nightmare actually stems from this being. Victims often describe waking in the dark, unable to move, with a crushing pressure on their chest and a sense that something is watching from the shadows. Sound familiar? Like the Hat Man, the Mara is a visitor of thresholds between waking and sleep, safety and fear. Her presence doesn't speak, it waves. Some suggest that the Hat Man is less a harbinger of death and more a sentinel of dread, like a reaper stripped of his scythe, existing not to end life, but to observe it from the shadows. He doesn't take souls, he watches them unravel. Japanese folklore offers a uniquely unsettling parallel in the form of Hachisaku-sama, or 8 feet tall. This towering female spirit wears a wide-brimmed hat and a long white dress, often standing motionless at a distance and letting out a bone-chilling monotone sound. She's known for targeting children, gradually drawn nearer each night until she claims them. Like the Hat Man, she embodies a sense of inevitability, silent observation followed by eventual encroachment. These archetypes, the Jinn, the Watchers, the Mara, Hachisaku-sama, transcend geography. They appear in borderlands between night and morning, dreams and waking, safety and threat. They linger at thresholds and mark those who notice them. The Hat Man, as we understand him now, surged into prominence during the 1990s and early 2000s, an era when the internet allowed people to compare notes and realize they weren't alone. But he may be part of a much older mythos, one whose name and shape have simply evolved with time. The most consistent detail in Hat Man stories is the paralysis, the complete inability to move, often while fully conscious. Witnesses report waking in the middle of the night, pinned to their beds, staring helplessly as a man-shaped shadow appears in the doorway, corner, or even directly over them. He never speaks, but some claim they've heard whispers, felt mocking laughter, or sensed invasive thoughts that weren't their own. An account shared by a bartender in Cincinnati involved a reportedly haunted hotel where multiple staff members, including a chef and a manager, claimed to have seen a 6 to 7 foot tall figure in a pinstripe suit and fedora tripping past them late at night. The consistency of the sightings among different people, none of whom initially spoke to each other about it, left the storyteller deeply unsettled. Another Reddit user shared a chilling memory of the Hat Man during what they described as the worst sleep paralysis episode of their life. They awoke to see him standing just inside a slightly open door, completely still, but unmistakably there. The presence coincided with what they later learned was a death in the house, casting the encounter in an even more unsettling light. And then there are stories like this.
When I was about 14, I lived in a house with my mom and an abusive stepdad. One night I awoke to what I thought was my mom messing with me, standing in my doorway to scare me. I kept yelling at her to stop until I woke up some and noticed there was actually a very tall, dark shadow wearing a wide-brimmed hat and a long trench coat. I've never experienced before or after night terrors, sleep paralysis, or paranormal activity. A memory is vivid and visceral.
Sound familiar? It should. Stories like this one appear again and again, blending childhood trauma with adult anxiety, and an inescapable sense that he's always been watching. Sleep paralysis is the most widely accepted medical explanation. During REM sleep, the body enters a state of temporary paralysis. If you awaken during this phase, you may be conscious but unable to move. Sensation of being watched, hearing footsteps, or seeing figures is common. Your brain scrambling to make sense of the body's frozen state. Hypnagogic hallucinations, which occur as the brain transitions into or out of sleep, may explain the vividness and consistency of these encounters. Scientists also cite pareidolia, the human brain's tendency to find patterns, like faces or figures, in darkness. The Hat Man, skeptics argue, is just a culturally shared hallucination. As more people learn about him, the brain uses this archetype to interpret that liminal state between sleep and wakefulness. But this doesn't completely explain the shared details. The coat, the hat, the cold, the feeling of sentience. Nor does it account for sightings that happen outside of sleep, in mirrors, reflections, during daylight, or by multiple witnesses at once. Paranormal theories suggest that Hat Man is a type of shadow entity, different from a ghost or spirit. One possibility is that he is a psychic parasite, a being that feeds off fear and emotional distress, much like energy vampires from folklore. This theory suggests that Hat Man appears in moments of vulnerability to absorb negative energy, growing stronger the more terrified the witness becomes. Others describe him as an interdimensional traveler, slipping through cracks in our reality when consciousness is weakened, such as during sleep, trauma, or meditative states. This theory posits that the Hat Man isn't tied to death or the afterlife, but to alternate planes of existence that occasionally overlap with our own. Another interpretation paints him as a demonic observer, not here to attack, but to mark. According to this theory, those who see the Hat Man are chosen, observed, and subtly manipulated over time. His presence is more of a signpost than a threat, a harbinger of spiritual or personal upheaval. Yet another theory introduces the concept of the tulpa, a being or entity created through intense mental focus and collective belief. Originating in Tibetan mysticism and later popularized by Western occult traditions and theosophy, tulpas begin as thoughts or imagined figures, but can eventually gain autonomy if believed in strongly enough. In recent years, the idea has resurfaced in pop culture and internet subcultures, where shared narratives and focused attention are said to give shape to once fictional entities. If enough people imagine something vividly enough, and with shared consistency, could that thought form begin to act on its own? Could the Hat Man, once just a sleep-induced shadow, have evolved into something more? Something summoned not through rituals, but through collective fear. Some link his rise in the late 20th century to moments of intense cultural anxiety, war, technological upheaval, spiritual disconnection. In that way, he's not just a monster, he's a mirror. Carl Jung might have described the Hat Man as a manifestation of the shadow self, repressed, unacknowledged parts of the psyche. He appears more vulnerable, reflective, or fractured, and maybe that's why he always feels so familiar. The Hat Man phenomenon exploded with the rise of internet forums in the early 2000s. Sites like the Hat Man Project began compiling hundreds of submissions from people claiming to see the same figure. Paranormal podcasts, YouTube channels, and horror fiction amplified its presence. As the myth spread and evolved, more and more people became witness to the Hat Man phenomenon. It became a paradox. Is the Hat Man a myth that spreads like a virus? Or does awareness act like an invitation? The internet doesn't just share stories, it shapes them. In the digital age, myth-making has gone viral. Algorithms push eerie videos into millions of feeds overnight. Anonymous forums allow people to convince encounters without ridicule. As legends like the Hat Man gain visibility, they solidify into shared experience, reinforcing each other until the border between fiction and belief begins to dissolve. Is the Hat Man being created by the stories we tell, or being conjured by the attention we give him? The idea echoes old folklore, that to speak a name is to give it power. Some compare the Hat Man to Slender Man, but more primal, older. Unlike urban legends crafted on message boards, the Hat Man seems to have always been there, lurking in dreams, corners, and ancient stories. He's also appeared, sometimes subtly, sometimes overtly, in modern pop culture. The red-faced demon from Insidious, the Babadook's eerie silhouette, and even the Thin Man trope in horror games all echo traits of the Hat Man. Tall, looming, mostly silent, and tied to psychological dread. Though not always named, his influence lingers. In recent years, TikTok users have revived the legend, posting short, breathless recountings of late-night sightings, often ending with the camera swinging to a dark hallway, only to cut to black. Some videos claim he appeared after they watched other videos of him. Even more unsettling, users across languages and cultures, without any prior knowledge of shadow people, have reported identical details, as if the Hat Man doesn't just live on the internet, but uses it to travel. Why is the Hat Man more prevalent now than ever before? Some psychologists suggest that the modern world has cultivated a new kind of loneliness, one where we are constantly stimulated but rarely seen. In a world overrun by screens and algorithms, the Hat Man may represent the fear that someone or something is watching, even when we're utterly alone. Others believe that trauma and emotional vulnerability create cracks in the veil between dimensions, allowing entities like the Hat Man to slip through. The COVID-19 pandemic saw a rise in reported sightings of sleep paralysis figures, especially among isolated individuals. As fear, uncertainty, and sleeplessness spiked globally, so too did stories of the Hat Man. But the phenomenon isn't limited to pandemics or personal crisis. It appears to surge during collective psychological stress, economic collapse, war, social unrest. When people feel powerless and watched by forces they can't control, the Hat Man seems to thrive. Even the way we sleep has changed. With screen exposure before bed, fragmented sleep cycles, and overstimulation, our minds are primed for distorted waking states. And in those moments, half awake, mentally frayed, the Hat Man often appears. In a world where anxiety is ambient and trust is fractured, he's not just a nightmare. He's an echo of everything we refuse to face in daylight. Maybe he's real, maybe he's not. But tonight, when you're lying in bed, eyes closed, half awake, listen for the silence. If the room feels colder than usual, if the shadows seem darker, if you suddenly realize you can't move, look to the corner. And if he's there, coat, hat, no face, don't stare too long, because if you do,
I might remember you too.